everyone. I'm Brianna Winner.
I'm Brittany Winner,
And this is Todd.
I don't know who I am.
This is Todd McCaffrey.
Todd McCaffrey. Hello. What? They're all looking at me. See, I did it right. Hello and welcome to
The How to Create Your Own Novel panel. So 2021. What is this? Is this our 10th year of doing this panel?
I mean,
Might be.
we're always so used to having an audience. It's now our second year doing this via Zoom, and we're excited next year to have our audience in person.
I'm really excited for that. That's gonna be pretty epic when I can go and hug my friends again. It feels like a lifetime, doesn't it?
It's been too long. Well, it's been a huge change. Anytime you go through a change like that, you're gonna be different.
Yep.
And then, so we've all gone through a huge change.
Actually, I'd like to start off by having everyone introduce themselves, and then I want to ask more about how you think that a change has affected writing and publishing.
Okay.
Okay. First, Todd.
I am Todd McCaffrey. I am the co-author with these two amazing twins of the Twin Soul series.
Aha, look, it is on the mug.
And
It's on the mug.
Oh yeah, bring it up close to the camera.
It's on the mug.
They've never given us a camera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we like this. Maybe we'll do cameras from now on. And also the recently released June 17th, The Magpie's War, which we're very, very proud of.
Oh yeah.
And we'll be talking a little bit about that indirectly because we're going to be talking about what it's like to collaborate together and how you do mind melding design and story outlines.
Also, how not to kill your twin, a manual.
Or how not to kill your twin writers both.
What? We've never made a mistake in our lives. Is that
Of course.
Right?
I mean, we all know that I'm Todd's favorite, but that's fine.
Oh,
It's okay.
Goodness, she lies. Everyone knows it's me.
Actually, everyone knows it's me.
Well, could you talk about how you got started in your other works?
Boy, that's a long and interesting story, which we will compress to a very short period of time. I'm one of those outsider, out of the norm sort of people. I was a board gamer back in the days of board games. And I also had this mother who wrote some stuff that people might know. Anne McCaffrey, who wrote, Dragonflight and the whole Dragonriders of Pern series. And I first got snagged into actually being published when we were working on a board game with Mayfair Games called, what did we call it? I think we called it Dragonflight, which is a really cool board game. And then I was asked to write thread fighting tactics on Pern. And then after that, I was asked to write a couple other short stories and actually 22-minute animated episode of Dinosaurs, for which I am trying to forget.
You know what?
Well, I keep reminding him that he did it.
I think it's great. Are you kidding? I think in your writing, you got to take every opportunity, and explore and have fun.
You're right. It was really interesting in that I learned that some tricks that I thought would work didn't. And I got paid. I'm not complaining.
Hey.
I like getting paid.
You know what? That's a good point. I think everyone would agree with you on that point.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's like a universally agreed upon point.
A universally agreed upon.
What are you doing?
She's taking lint off of you. It's either that or she's trying to tell you something.
You know what? Don't clone yourself. It's not worth the money.
Actually, I'm kind of all for cloning nowadays. It's just, because then you'll never walk a clone.
I don't get it.
And you'll never walk alone.
On that note,
Yes,
I
on
don't-
that note,
let's talk about how you and I got started.
No, I
Yeah.
actually don't. I don't know that pop
That's-
culture reference.
well, we'll have to look it up later. Everybody else, you have your homework.
Put it in the comments so someone will tell me.
Please, yeah.
Please. Also, I think we said this to begin with, but this always happens about right at the beginning of our panel where everyone says, wait, which one's which? I am Brianna. I will always be sitting on this side. I'm Britt, as her friends call me, or Brittany. She will always be on that side. There will be no switching. There will be no craziness or silliness of any kind.
So what's interesting is that we initially got started writing together. I mean, we still do write together.
We do write together. We like being together.
But now, 15 years later.
No, not 15 years, not yet.
14 years later.
More like 13 years, I think.
See, they always agree.
13 years later.
It's actually 14 years.
Okay, whatever it is, it's over a decade, which is terrifying because time keeps passing it and I don't allow it to pass.
So now, all this time later, our stories have actually diverged.
Mm-hmm.
So how we got started are the same, but now we actually write some different things. So we let me rephrase that, sorry. We got started writing to overcome our dyslexia, which we had, and we still do have, very severe dyslexia and other learning disabilities. It was a suggestion from our dad to write a book to do the exact opposite of what we thought we could do. And we did, over speech to text, which was the 2007 or 2008 version of Dragon Speak. We finished it, realized it was a real book, rewrote it, and with the help of our parents getting the layout and everything else, we sent it in for awards and ended up winning 8 and going national. And that's how our career has started.
We got very lucky. We have an amazing.
Oh, I like that. That looks great. Look.
Oh, that does look great.
Yep. Okay.
But it is covering you. So
well, that's okay. So that's the Strand Prophecy, everybody.
that is our first book. That's the book that made us who we are. And we're very lucky we have an amazing set of parents that believed in us and supported us with, Britt and I were very sick growing up. We were born very early. Statistically, we should have not even been born, but we made it. We basically were bubble kids to like 6 or 7. We were very sick. And then we ended up, our health started to get better after that, but then the learning disabilities took its toll around 12,
which is very common for premature babies, by the way.
Very, very common.
But when you have dyslexia, I always call it, really, it's a gift, because if you have deficiency in one thing like reading, you have, for me, gifts in other areas. For me, I can remember everything audio that I hear.
It's terrifying.
And Brianna can remember almost everything she reads. So
which is annoying to your friends.
Us together is one complete human.
Yes, we're perfect together. If we were one person, we'd be a superhero.
Yeah. So we sent it in for awards. We won 8. We got picked up by Borders and Barnes and Noble at the time. And then we started working full time from there. And we were able to graduate early from high school and devote ourselves to writing. We opened a nonprofit to help other kids at the time, because we were kids with learning disabilities. And we kept doing that until recently. And about 4 years ago, we met the wonderful Todd,
and we started to become friends with Todd, and we talked about writing a book together, and then something pretty significant to Britt happened around that time.
So we met Todd, and my eyesight started getting a little bit off, and I joked with him. I said, I might go blind. I never thought I was going to go blind. Blurry vision, it's a different world. And he said, well, if you ever do, I will be your eyes and help you write. And I remembered that. And I actually did. I ended up going blind overnight, March 2017, which is 4 years ago now. And my life was changed forever. And my writing was changed forever. And during that period of time that I had went blind and learned how to navigate the world and do everything over again, very much like in a childlike state, at least I was, because I didn't know how to do anything. I couldn't walk anywhere by myself. I lost my independence. These were my rock, both of them. And us writing Magpie's War was the thing I look forward to every morning when I woke up. So that book has a very special place in my heart, but also changed the way that I see the world and the way that I write. And for anyone that loves to write, but has a very difficult time typing, it's not the only way that you could write. Speech to text is fine. If you write on an iPhone speech to text, it's still writing. So
yeah, I would also add that Kevin J. Anderson, who's a New York Times bestselling author,
Kevin.
only writes using dictation. He gets a digital voice recorder and he goes on mile high, mile long walks to record chapters at a time.
Yep.
There's no right way to write.
Yeah, and then since then, Brianna has published a wonderful poetry book.
Oh, thanks, Mister.
Millennial Madness. We don't have a copy here to show you, but you can see it.
No, we don't have. Of course, we don't have our own book copies around the house. Ththey're somewhere. They're
Mostly-
somewhere so special.
Mostly we give them away to friends. It's sort of like, oh, you haven't read it? Oh, here.
Oh yeah, that's our problem. That's
I
all
have,
three of our
or my
problems.
cookbook hoard.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, my cookbook hoard.
Too many.
Too many. So Brianna's written beautiful poetry. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you,
She's
Britt.
finishing up her second book now. and we continue to write together. Brianna and I are starting to go into new mediums. We've now written short stories. We've been published by
Ta-da! Look, I do the
Galaxy's
fingers again.
Edge, which of course Todd has been published with. Well, Todd is, master writer.
Oh, thank you.
And Modest God,
Indeed.
humble God. And we're now hopefully getting into writing comic books and graphic novels.
Again, because that's how we started. See, our first book, there's actually a comic in the front of the book. And our first love was comic books. So we would,
As you can see.
and every night what I do before I go to sleep is I go on Comixology, the app, or I have my physical comics, and I just read comics every single night. And for those watching that are interested in writing graphic novels or comics as well, I think everything that we're going to say applies to that.
It's just a different format, even for screenplay writing, for theater, for TV, film. They're different mediums, but they're all essentially story creation, which is what we're going to be focusing on.
Story is story. And it's good to branch out, and the more experience you have in one area, it helps you in another. For instance, learning how to screenwrite for me helped my book writing a lot.
For me, what helped my writing was life experience and the way that I deal with rough situations, like going blind and dealing with health issues, is by writing. That's how I'm able to get my emotions out and process the world. And Todd's just a writing machine. He's amazing. He could talk for himself, but I could talk for him and tell everyone that he's just a writing machine. And he wakes up very early in the morning and is writing when I'm still sleeping.
Unlike the two of us, we need our beauty sleep. Darling, we need our beauty sleep. It's true.
So actually, that's what I want to talk about next.
Beauty sleep?
No, our writing routines.
Okay.
Because I've talked to a lot of writers that have been published or want to be published, and they've talked to me to think there's like one way to do it, and they've never thought about changing things up. And it kind of goes into writing block as well, is that sometimes if you're sitting at home and you can't get the ideas out, you just can't put it on paper, and you're frustrated, maybe going into a coffee shop. I mean, now that God willing, most of us are vaccinated or are it's safer out there, you can go out and experience the world, or even go to a park. Just to get out there to change the environment around you might help you write. I know someone that writes all of their books in a notebook and then transcribes them. You just really need to change. So what is your writing routine then?
Well, my writing routine has also changed through COVID. One of the things that I've decided is really important is to avoid reading email before I start writing.
Actually, I'm going to write that down later and apply that to my life.
Yeah, no, because the email can just throw you off of your stride and everything. So I get up, I head out to Starbucks nowadays because they're open again, yay! And I sit down and write there. And my target is 2,000 words a day. Sometimes I make it, sometimes I don't. I'm happy if I've got 500 words because some days are like that. But it's helpful. The change in location allows you to do a little mental shift as well, right? I'm in my work mode. I'm at Starbucks. I have everything I need. I shook the table.
It's fine.
And so now I get to work. Then when I'm done later on, I'll go check email. If anything's really important, somebody will phone me. So I don't let email hold me up anymore.
Right. That's a great one.
Yeah.
For me, how my writing method kind of changed with COVID is I've never really been much of a writer's block person. I've had story blocks. And then Britt and I, we always had this method where we'd either, leave the house and we go do something else, then come back. We'd let the story sit and then come back the next day and reread it without editing. Or we just go to the other one, even if we're writing a story independently, and be like, hey, you read this. I'm doing something else. I don't care. Read it. And then go read it. But with COVID, it changed because for years, I started out using speech to text. And then I transferred fully over to typing because I always felt that made me a quote unquote real writer. And I really have come to it, I come full circle after a decade, and I'm back to speech to text. I am so much faster and so much more efficient. And also with my dyslexia, it is
there are so many more words that I can say that I cannot spell. And usually I'll have my Google tab up, I'll go to my other one and I'll be like, okay, put this word in 5 times. And sometimes that's good, to do. But at a certain point I realize, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can. And there's certain words like because, that word, because, I'm never going to get because right. That's okay. That's okay. Maybe one day I will. It's more about getting it on paper. The other thing I do is I have a Pinterest board, and I have Pinterest. For me, it's my cup of tea, my closed door, my silence, and I turn on music and look at my Pinterest and start writing down random stuff, just random stuff. And sometimes I'll doodle as well. And it's not about not about being perfect. It's about just getting it out there. Some people call it word vomit. It's definitely not necessarily, I'm not the only one to have ever done this.
Right.
And now, Britster, how about you? So my life changed forever. 4 years ago, I went blind, but that's not what changed. February of last year, so February of 2020, I got one of the early variants of COVID, and so did my husband, and I had a stroke. So I've spent the last year trying to recover, but I wasn't able to get the help that I needed up until a couple months ago, until it was safe to leave. So my memory was not so good for a period of time. And I have changed from keeping all of my writing ideas into my head to writing everything in detail out and rereading my own work multiple times to make sure that I absorb all of it. And I think it's something I'm going to keep, because if you're just relying on your memory for something when there's so much going on, there's whatever it is, for me, I have dogs running around. I've got, you have a life to cook dinner. You've got stuff to do. For my friends that have kids, you can have grandkids. There's a lot that happens in everyday life, and to count on your memory for a story concept, it's not going to come out the same way. So I physically write it down. And even though I have a hard time, I'm obviously mostly blind, the actual act of physically writing it down helps me remember it. And then I take pictures with my iPad of whatever I've written. And that has changed everything for me. When I'm first coming up with an idea or concept, I put on a song that reminds me of the concept or the genre that I'm creating. And I just think of scenarios. And I'll think of a scene, and then I'll write down that scene. Think of another scene, I'll write down that scene, and then I'll string them together. It's changed. It's changed a lot. It's still changing, because when you have a stroke, you are, but you're not the same you were before. So I'm far more into outlining and reading more scientific facts and having more of a skeleton to what I write than being more of a free flow writer, which I am with my author.
You used to never write any notes down before?
No, because I could remember everything I ever created my entire life. That was my talent, and I can, but there's a period of time that I can't now. So now it's about, and I think it's good for anyone. I mean, if you look at what J.R. Tolkien has with all of the stuff that he'd written behind, you never really know what's going to happen with your writing. So having things that have been left behind for whatever reason could be a good thing.
I mean, we've had stories now that we created 10 years ago that we're just starting to work on.
Right.
And if we hadn't written it down, we would never remember.
Yeah. And then sometimes, we had a flood that completely fried a computer. Woo! And we lost an entire book and all of our notes. So
that was months of work.
Now we have the cloud now, but this was years ago. It sometimes might be a good idea to have a physical copy of what you do.
Yeah, and always, save it.
Brianna converted me to Google Cloud a while back.
Yeah, that was
And
life-changing.
What?
It was life-changing for me.
Yeah, no, I totally love it. Not only do you have stuff up on the cloud so you can access it anywhere, but way more interesting for me is you have what us software geeks like to call version control.
Yeah.
So every time, I don't know how often it does, and I haven't bothered, but I can sit there and say, okay, what did I change between today and yesterday? And I can get an actual copy of something that shows all the changes if I need it. It means that I don't have to fear leaving stuff in the manuscript that I really kind of want to take out because I'm afraid I might lose it otherwise. So that changes things a lot. Also, it's amazingly easy to collaborate on Google Docs. You can actually see the other person inserting text and stuff if you're on the same page together.
Brandon and I do that. We used to use Dropbox and we would have versions by the date.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. We actually lost an entire book that way.
Oh,
Was it the same book that we lost also from, that was Friday?
it's amazing that book ever came to be somewhat.
I don't even want to name it.
I
Let's
just,
not name it. I don't want to name it.
it was almost the cursed book. There was a flood.
We lost, like, we had to rewrite the thing so many times that by the time we were done, we're like, we're just releasing it.
We
It's
just
gonna
can't
be-
do it. We can't do it.
Which you'll find a couple of times. There's a question a lot of people ask, which is how often should I edit something? It was, oh God, I've lost her first name. It was somebody over at Rock who said you really shouldn't edit it more than 4 times. After that, it just gets stale.
Yes.
Yeah,
Totally.
I can see that because
Yeah.
when it's really, writing style has changed so much, especially working with Todd. We're so much more polished.
Yep.
And maybe it's time.
Well, I think part
It's
of it
probably time.
also is,
No, I'm
no, it's not just
joking.
time. There's also it's kind of like a muscle. The more you write, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
The more you use it, the better you get at it. And there's also the fact that when you're first writing, you don't know what you're doing, and so you're afraid. People spend, hours going, well, but I need a thesaurus here so I can find the exact perfect word. And then that only took me 2 days, so I get to spend a week on the next perfect word. You got to follow the rule of, as Brebe says, vomit and mop, or as
Yeah.
I say,
I'm a poet.
allow yourself to be bad. Instead of saying, I have to do it the perfect way. One, it's never going to be perfect. But the other thing is allow yourself to be bad, get it out there. You can always edit it later. You can always fix it later. You can't fix thin air. It doesn't work.
I have the ugliest rough drafts of all time. If you read my rough drafts and you read my final draft, you would not know it's the same book.
Mine is all speech to text now. So if anything, it's a word that I wanted to say, but the computer or iPad or iPhone did not recognize it.
Right.
And made it something completely different, which also happens with all of my text messages, which can be incredibly awkward.
Britt, you are a rocket texter, all things considered.
I do the best I can.
I
And so I'm glad that I'm in a time that has smartphones. Because before it would have been far more difficult.
I like your text messages because you don't use any slang I don't know.
Well, it might have something to do with the fact that you guys are identical twins and grew up together. But
Yeah.
eh.
No, there's a
idea.
big difference because we lived together for so long and we wrote together.
Yeah.
So I mean, we were in the same room for years.
Years.
So it was wake up, sit down, write, and that was like that all the way through our teenage years. But now we're grown up. I'm married and live down the street from her, and
Yeah, I'm nearby a lot of the time.
nearby.
And I'm gonna want to be nearby more. And
Yeah,
it's different. It's
It's
different. It's different because
we have to make an effort.
yeah, we have to actually make an effort with our relationship when before it just was and there was never anything before.
Right.
Now we have to schedule times to see each other. We have to make an effort to be twins. We can't,
But even for work, I mean,
Yeah.
this goes into the collaboration. And also because 2 of us are related, identical twins, and one of us is not our identical twin.
He's not.
We have to keep that out of it. Like if you work with a relative and then there's someone else, if you're gonna have relative spats, it happens. You have to learn how to walk away and do it in a different room. You know what I mean? It's like, so it doesn't.
Yeah, the thing is that there's a lot of stuff that you can get away with your twin that you can't get away with other people. And also,
Yes, you've made us better writers.
You've
now.
made, okay, yeah,
Now
yeah.
don't. I know it's recorded, but don't
Don't let it go to your head.
Don't, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, just 3, 4, 5 million people have seen this. They all will quote it back at you.
Sure.
We will deny everything and admit to nothing. Isn't that right, Britt?
That'll help,
Thank
especially
you.
when it's recorded.
Yep.
I wanted to add, though, that one of the things that I got from the twins was because Britt had sight problems, we had to read everything out loud.
Yeah.
And rereading out loud is one of the best ways to find grammatical errors, to find typos, to find just sentences that clank and things like that. So I would recommend that you try reading it out loud, especially when you're starting out, to yourself. And I think you'll find stuff there that works and doesn't work, and figure out how to make it work better.
Yeah, I mean, I could be a pain because if we're writing together with one of us or all three of us, I'll just say, repeat that, repeat that, repeat that. You are never a pain.
Yes, she is.
Well, no,
But not that. Just you, that's your personality overall. Your vision and all that. That's never a pain. It's really who you are. That is.
no, I mean, but like, repeat that sentence, repeat that sentence. That doesn't make sense. How is it spelled? And like, oh my goodness, and go to the. I feel like I'm like the Siri or Alexa of the, you know, the like.
Do you really feel like you're Siri or Alexa?
I'm afraid if I say it too much, my Alexa is gonna wake up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's
Yeah,
not
Don't talk to it.
yeah,
Don't talk to it.
yeah.
Don't talk to the robot. She'll be like, I do not understand.
Do not talk to the robot.
So we were going to talk about next was being hybrid authors
And publishing.
and publishing, because we were all early hybrid authors.
What does hybrid author mean for
Yeah.
the audience?
Let's
That's a good one.
all right, Todd. Why
Yeah,
don't you
yeah, yeah.
go
Go
first?
for
Okay.
that. We just don't
So-
mind us.
All right, so we have a new world. We're in a very, very new world, and one of the things that we've discovered, it used to be you were a traditionally published author. You would write your great novel. You would send a query letter off to an agent who might represent you. If the agent chose to represent you, they would then send your manuscript off to a publisher. If the publisher liked it, they might send you a contract. Aren't you lucky? And then with a lot of effort, in about 2 years, you'd have a book published.
Oh,
Whee! And it'd be in the bookstores and all that. And you get all these reviews and cool, and all this marvelous stuff. Neat. Lots of good marketing. Then ebooks really took off, even before ebooks took off, and the twins were actually in the even before stage.
yes, we
Oh,
were.
yeah.
You could publish your own book. You could always pretty much do that. You would find people who are good at bookbinding. And the problem is, of course, that if you published your own book, you would want to have an inventory of books. So if you have 1,000
Oh.
books and people want to buy them, then the
Oh.
1,000 books will go away relatively quickly. If not, you have a garage full of books.
We've done this.
Yes.
And luckily we've sold the books, but it's a different world now with print on demand.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
with print on demand, for those of you who haven't heard of that, it basically means pretty much what it says, which is you say, I want a book, and the printer automatically gets an order and prints the book and sends it to you. Whereas before, publishers had to guess, I think we're going to sell 5,000 copies of this book. Let's print 5,000 copies. Great if they sold all 5,000 copies. Kind of hard if they only sold 500. Again, warehouse. And that was one of the problems with the traditional industry, is it couldn't handle that. Print on demand is relatively new. And then the next thing, of course, was ebooks. And nowadays, you're looking at, roughly half of all books that are sold are ebooks.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
And
Amazing.
that really changes the whole marketplace. So what we talk about with hybrid authors is they're authors who've been traditionally published and are now also publishing themselves. And that is the definition of a hybrid author.
Or like us, we've had work that's been published by traditional publishers who initially were independent and got picked up by a large distributor. So it can go either way.
Now there's a lot of successful books out there that started independent, like The Martian
Yeah, or Aragon.
or 50 Shades of Grey.
Well, yes. indeed.
That counts. It counts. I'm just
I-
gonna bring
I-
it counts. Sorry, guys.
What
mean,
Chuck Tingle does, the amount of output, I mean, regardless of what he writes,
Yes, let's
is
yeah,
absolutely incredible.
yeah, it's incredible.
Anyone of Hugo. So, I mean,
for those of you who don't know, Hugo Awards are presented or voted on by the fans, the people who go to the World Science Fiction Convention, which is held every year. So they're kind of the People's Choice Awards for science fiction and fantasy. Nebula Awards are awarded by those authors who are members of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America. It's really international, but we didn't want to change the A. And again, that means that basically your fellow writers have decided that this is the best novel, novelette, story, whatever, for that year. So it's kind of cool. Now, a new award that's come up is also more of a People's Choice Award. It's called the Dragon Award. And
Yeah.
it's presented at Dragon Con, but actually anybody can vote for it.
Really?
And-
Really?
Yeah.
That I didn't know. That's very interesting.
Yeah, you're going, right, this year?
No,
Not to
not
Dragon
unless they make
Okay.
it.
Got it.
Well,
Yeah.
there's still some pandemic stuff going
Yeah, yeah,
around.
yeah.
So
We should all be back out and about next year.
Mhm.
For sure,
Uh,
with luck,
With luck. Yeah, with luck.
because we're looking at the Delta variant and it's scary.
As of today and tomorrow, that could be a booster.
Hopefully we'll get rid of it.
Yeah.
hopefully,
So
gotta stay.
But
optimistic.
anyway, so traditional, you've gone through a major publisher, usually one of the big five, and you get to use your favorite web search tool to find out what the big five are. Independent or indie, you're publishing it yourself. It's actually become very easy to do nowadays. You can do it straight through Amazon with Kindle, or you can go to Draft Digital, which will publish you in lots of places. You can go through Ingram Spark. Ingram was a major distributor, still is, and they've got an indie outlet as well, so you can do that way. You can also do audiobooks. It gets a lot cheaper if you have a voice that you're willing to put on an audiobook. It's
Right.
still a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But that is another way you can be published. So you become an independent publisher, which includes all the joys and perils of being a publisher.
it's a
So-
job.
It not only you writing the books and writing the words and everything, but now you're editing, you're getting somebody to edit for them, you're getting somebody to put a cover on it, you're getting somebody to help you, or you writing the book descriptions and everything and getting it up online. You're doing the marketing, you're doing the advertising, so it becomes more demanding, but it can also be hugely more rewarding.
We should also mention Writers of the Future.
We should always mention
because
Writers of the
I don't want to forget that they're just a wonderful.
So
contest.
L. Ron Hubbard, way back when, realized that our creatives, our illustrators, and our writers, particularly in science fiction and also in fantasy, are kind of the dreamers of our future. And he wanted to encourage that. So he set up an award. First award was Writers of the Future. And then he added very shortly thereafter, Illustrators of the Future. This is something you can submit to, short stories, online for free once a quarter. And you can keep on submitting until you win, or you become ineligible because you become, a major best-selling author, and we'll all want your autographs. But it is certainly something to look out for. Check it out. See if you want to submit to it. It's writersofthefuture.com.
Yep.
Or actually, and there's from there you can get into Illustrators. There's no Illustrators of the
And
Future.
I always get asked two questions, and so I'm going to answer it now. It is actually a secular nonprofit.
Yep.
And it really, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's separate than any religious portion, so it's just specifically for writing.
And people of all backgrounds and faiths and everything are a part of it, and everyone's respectful to each other, and that's something that I really like.
Yeah,
It's worth doing, even if you decide you don't want to submit your story. If you set that 3-month goal, I'll have a short story written in 3 months, then you're getting yourself a deadline that you can work towards, and it's really useful.
yeah. I mean, even and it's no one. The judges don't know who submitted what. It's completely. Is the right word blind judging?
Yeah,
It
I
is
think so.
blind
You know
judging.
what's cool though?
The name
was
is
just about to say-
taken off the story
Or-
before the judges see it. So all the stories being judged on is the title and the content. So if somebody decides they don't like women, well, they don't know who wrote the story. If someone decides they don't like men, well, they don't know who wrote the story.
So our dad is actually an illustrator and has been nominated. Actually, won one of the awards this year.
Yeah, the Illustrators of the Future Award, and he's under JW Creative Art. He's about to have his first gallery showing.
This weekend. Yeah, and he does all of our book covers now, which is incredible. I mean, because they called me and they went. They called him to tell him he won, but they thought they actually mixed up, like figured that maybe they were trying to reach me. So they're like, wait, this can't be the same Jeff, but it was. They had no idea. So
And he's admitted because Todd told him to. So what we generally do is, listen to Todd.
I like that. I always listen to Tom.
humble God.
One of my favorite things about working with Todd is that he has this wonderful optimism and belief in people and talents and creativity.
All right, it's working again. The computer died, but we have plugged it back in and we've figured out how to use it. I think the next thing that we are talking about is 20 books to 50K, which is an incredible concept and community that Todd knows a lot more about than I do. I know a lot of people in the community, some of them have written less and make more, or written more and make less, but it's really, isn't it a community of people that exchange ideas and information?
It is. The idea behind it, the why it's called 20 books to 50K, is that there's a belief that perhaps when you write 20 books, you could be making $50,000 a year on it. Not a guarantee. I mean, we know that there are a lot of people who write one book and are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but it's just sort of a target. And you can join the group. It's on Facebook. They have annual meetings. They're going to be doing one here in Las Vegas, our new hometown, in November. And you get to meet lots of fellow-minded authors from all sorts of genres: romance, historical, science fiction, fantasy, thriller, you name it. It's all over the place. And you'll get a lot of great information if that's the sort of thing you want to get into, or it may be a little bit further down your writing road, as it were.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible community. And if I was just starting out all over again, that's something I would do immediately. And then also I would start submitting to Writers of the Future, because there's also an incredible community. Sorry, my phone thought it was off. Sorry about that. It's okay, Britt, don't worry about it.
The difference between 20 books to 50K and Writers of the Future would be that Writers of the Future is for short stories. 20 books is generally for novel length works. When somebody asks me, well, which should I start with? I would say that you can write a lot more short stories with the same number of words as you can a novel. Novels are typically these days about 80,000 words long.
Right.
Whereas a short stories usually around about 5,000 words long. So you could write 16 short stories at the same time. On the other hand, one of the big problems with writing in anything is the world building. Even if you're telling a romance story, you still have to establish your world and know what the rules are going to be. You can do a romance story set in modern day in a place that you know usually, but you're still going to find stuff coming up that you're going to want to know about and how to build the world.
Right.
And it's always going to, that's a skill set that is really helpful to hone and to craft, and that's why we would recommend short stories as a starting point. But
you guys are forgetting something. We wrote a whole book, the three of us, remember, on world building.
I didn't. I was just letting you.
Oh, you were letting me say it.
Yeah.
So we've written a few books on creative writing
Called The Right Path. It's pun, right? WRITE path.
And the first one, the twins did together, which was
Navigate storytelling, and the second is world building, which we did with Todd.
Yep. And actually, the fun part about that is we used the example of the world that we built for the Winter Wyvern and the Twin Soul series as our example of how to build a world. So you can actually go pick up the Right Path world building and Winter Wyvern and sort of read them together, going, okay, how did they do that? Oh, I see.
That's how we break it all down. I don't.
Can you want me to help you with your phone, Britster?
I think I turned off this button.
You know what?
Phone makes dinging noise.
I don't
Ding,
know.
ding.
It's my mother.
News at 11.
So
You know what?
it's my mom texting me.
Are you okay?
Yes, actually.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. Mom.
Are you okay? How is panel?
How is panel?
How is panel?
Panel is good.
Panel
How
is good.
Panel? All right. So next question. Oh, where do you get your inspiration?
I think that's the kind of the note we wanted to end on.
Yeah,
because
inspiration. And lately we've been playing D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and
Some of us have been playing it a little bit longer than lately.
longer we've been alive, actually, than we've been alive,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. Let's
and
not
I
go
think
there.
it's actually a really good way to create ideas.
I can't believe we're this late to the game on playing D&D. All our friends, our co-authors, everybody plays D&D. We're not just discovered
few months
D&D.
ago.
A couple of months ago. It's been like a religious experience. The clouds parted and the D20 dice came down and Britt and I are like, oh, and then we're going to everyone like, we discovered this amazing thing. And everyone looks at us like, where have you been?
Forever. Yeah, where have you been? I mean, even like we know Larry Elmore, who's such a brilliant artist. He's one of the original artists for D&D. So it really turned all the way.
Oh, Rob Pryor is also our cover artist. Rob, he's great. He did
Plug
he
it
did-
in.
He's done D&D art, and
Yeah.
there's so many great people associated with it. Jason Charles Miller, Satine Phoenix, Stone Jameson. There's Bonnie Morgan. I go on and on and on. It's just we're really late to the game on that.
But I see it's a great, really fun way if you're ever stuck, because it is story creation.
Mhm.
And it's
collaborative.
a really interesting fantasy universe. There's so many different ones that you can pick from. I think it's great. I think it's a great way for me. The way I get my inspiration from stories will be probably what ifs for everyday life. That's how I did initially, was what if this happened, or what if, essentially initially it was technology. I would check sciencedaily.com,
Yep, that's what we
and
did.
I do every single day check that. And that's because we did science fiction, but
purely at the beginning.
purely. Now we've been on a fantasy kick, but we're writing our first regular, I think it's just a fiction story. It doesn't have any fantasy, doesn't have any science fiction.
Who?
We are.
Oh, you are news to me.
Yes, no, I've told you all about it, but you forgot. It's fine.
No, I know what you're talking about now.
Yes,
But even so,
it's a small one. So yeah, it's different. I'd say it's very different. And one of the things I love about writing is that it encapsulates. I'm going to say the word encapsulates. There we go.
Encapsulates.
Certain period of time in your life, and the writing style and what happens around you. And I think it's just a beautiful art form. The older I get, the more I appreciate it.
I would also say this about writing. Most writers start out because they're frustrated readers. They either say,
Yep.
nobody told this story, I'm going to do it, or they say, I can write better than that, which is cool. But if you're going to be a writer, if you want to be a writer, one of your first things is you've got to read a lot.
Or listen.
Or yes, if you can do audiobooks, listen a lot. But you really want to get in there and get to understand where the craft is. Television doesn't quite cut it, because television is usually 20 years behind what we're publishing in literature today.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I see enough to enjoy TV and films and anime and manga on I have a way to make everything really large on my computer, and comic books. So I think for me, it's the more fiction that I see in any way, and storytelling that I learn about, I think the better I get, because it teaches me about new things in life.
I always try to put myself personally on a diet of high quality fiction consistently every single day.
Mhm.
Whether it's I've been on a hardcore graphic novel kick this year. I've read just so far over 200 graphic novels this year, and I'm still going. So, and every year it changes. So, 1 year I was on a hardcore poetry kick. Some years I'm on a hardcore fantasy kick. It's just about continuous consumption of high quality content, because all that gets stuck in your brain of yours, and it'll help you, elevate the level of your craft, and also just add a level of happiness to life for me.
And you just hit on something really important. If you're going to write for yourself first.
Yeah, you're
Absolutely.
right.
Don't ever think, oh, they're going to love this, or oh, I'm going to mess with their minds, or anything like that. Write for yourself. Write the stories you want to see. You can fix them later if they aren't to everybody else's taste. Stephen King even says he writes the first draft for himself. And that would be my advice. Write for yourself, write for the enjoyment. You actually don't have to show your writing to anyone if you're afraid, but it's a good idea if you can get out there, you should do it. Also, as I say, writers start out as readers, and I personally, as a reader, would like to have more options and more good stuff out there. So get to work.
I think that's the perfect note to end this panel on.
Yeah, I would like to say one more thing. Just because you think something isn't good or good enough, imposter syndrome, it does not mean it's not great. I always have a little thought in my head that I think the best book that's ever been written has never been shared. I think someone wrote a manuscript and put it threw it in the trash, put it on a shelf, and no one's ever read it.
Yeah.
So it's not real. Share it, get better. It's like anything else, you have to hone your craft, and being too sensitive over it's hard because when we're all artists, it's very sensitive people, but to get a little callous, you got to move through it in order to be better. And it's just, I keep trying to tell everyone this, just because you think it's bad does not mean it's bad.
Right.
It could be the next best-selling book. It could be the best book that's ever written. You have no idea.
You don't have to.
And
expect
once it's done and out there, it's life of its own. It's not you anymore. And storytelling, it makes the world better. It takes people out of what's going on in their lives and shows them a world that's totally different. It shows them new ideas and concepts they wouldn't think about before, and introduce them to new types of people they would have never met. So I urge you to write down the ideas that you have in your brain and get it out there, and don't be afraid to do it. If you want to reach out to any of us, we are online. Todd is under Todd McCaffrey, right?
.org.
Okay, and we are under Winner Twins, or Brianna Winner, and Brittany Winner. You can email us. You can send us messages over Instagram or Facebook. We're happy to respond to you. If I don't get back to you, it's because I didn't see it. Send me another message again. So thank you so much, and thank you for watching our panel for 2021. Hopefully we'll see you all in person for 2022.
big virtual hugs.
Yeah, cheers to you
Cheers.
guys.